All right, today we're going to jump in a time machine and head back 2,500 years to ancient China. We're going to dig into an idea from Confucius that honestly feels like it could have been written yesterday. It's all about our rituals, our traditions, and why, for him, just going through the motions was one of the worst things you could do.
So picture this. The old social order is starting to crumble. Powerful families are getting bold, and they're starting to challenge the emperor's authority. But here's the thing. They're not raising armies. Nope. The rebellion is happening somewhere much more subtle, and to Confucius, way more insulting. It's all taking place during sacred ceremonies.
And this is Confucius's reaction. This isn't some calm philosophical reflection. This is pure, unfiltered outrage. He sees what one of these powerful families is doing, and he is absolutely livid. So what on earth did they do to set him off like this?
Now, to us, this might look like a list of weird etiquette mistakes, but in that time, this was basically treason. Using 8 rows of dancers, that was a privilege for the emperor and the emperor alone. It was a visual symbol of his ultimate power. Singing the sacred Young Song in your own home, that was like claiming your living room was the halls of government. These weren't just social gaffes, they were a direct assault on the entire social and spiritual order. Okay, so we get what they did, but the really important question is why Confucius was so furious. It wasn't just that they broke the rules. For him, these flashy, empty performances pointed to a much, much deeper problem. A total disconnect between what you do on the outside and who you are on the inside. And this, right here, gets to the absolute core of his entire philosophy. And there it is. His whole argument boiled down into one single, powerful question. Seriously, what is the point of all the fancy ceremonies and beautiful music if the person doing it doesn't have a good and sincere heart? Confucius is saying that without benevolence, without genuine goodness, all those rituals are just an empty, meaningless show. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got true rites. They come from a place of real goodness. They're about being frugal, not flashy. And when it comes to mourning, what matters is real grief, not just putting on a show of sadness. And on the other side, you've got the empty rites, all spectacle, all extravagance, and totally hollow, because that essential inner goodness is missing. To really drive this point home, Confucius and his students use this absolutely beautiful metaphor. It perfectly explains this relationship between your inner character and your outward actions. Think of it like trying to create a work of art. You have to start with a clean canvas. This whole idea gets captured in this great little conversation. A student quotes a poem about beautiful colors painted on plain silk. And Confucius makes a simple point. The colors come after the silk is prepared. And the student gets it instantly. The rites, those beautiful patterns of color, have to come after you have the foundation of a good heart, the plain silk. You just can't paint a masterpiece on a dirty canvas. You know, real reverence isn't about pretending you know everything. There's this great story where Confucius, the supposed master of rites, goes to the grand temple, and he asks questions about everything. Somebody mocks him, saying, how can this guy be an expert if he has to ask about everything? But what Confucius says next is so profound. The very act of asking, of being humble enough to want to understand, that is the correct right. It's not about blind obedience. It's about being sincerely engaged. And this way of thinking doesn't just apply to stuffy old temple ceremonies. Oh no. Confucius used this same lens to look at everything, from a piece of music to a sports competition. The question was always the same. Does this thing, whatever it is, express genuine inner goodness? Let's take archery, for example. For Confucius, the point isn't about winning or who's the strongest shot. That's totally secondary. The real point is how you behave. The competitors bow to each other, they let each other pass, they share a drink afterwards, no matter who won. The way they compete with that kind of respect and grace, that's the whole point. The competition itself becomes a ritual of good conduct. This brings us to a really fascinating little puzzle. Confucius listens to 2 pieces of music, the shao and the wu. And as you can see, he thinks both are perfectly beautiful. I mean, technically amazing, incredible compositions. But he only thinks one of them is perfectly good. So what's the deal? Why would one piece of beautiful music fail his moral test? Well, the answer is all about the subject matter. The music of Wu was basically a celebration of war and military conquest. And while it might have been a stunning piece of art, its message, for him, glorified violence. For Confucius, you just couldn't separate art from morality.
For something to be truly great, it had to be beautiful on the outside and good on the inside. It had to lift you up, not just entertain you.
So we know the feeling inside is what gives a ritual its power. But does that mean the ritual itself doesn't matter? Not at all. And this last story about a simple sacrifice really shows us what's truly worth holding on to. So one of his students, Tsu Kung, comes to him and says, "Hey, this monthly sacrifice of a sheep, it seems like a waste of a good animal. Why don't we just stop doing it?" Sounds pretty practical, right? But Confucius's response is so telling. He basically says, "You're worried about the cost of the sheep. I'm worried about the cost of losing the tradition itself."
You see, it was never actually about the sheep. The sheep is just a sheep. What mattered was the ritual, the continuity of a tradition that connects people to their past and reminds them of who they are. Getting rid of the ceremony, even for a good reason, would mean losing something much, much more valuable, the meaning it carried. And that really brings us to the final question that Confucius leaves us with, a question that isn't just for his students back then, but for all of us right now. It forces us to look at our own lives, our own traditions, everything from family holidays to how we greet each other. Are we just going through the motions, or are we acting with a sincere and reverent heart? For Confucius, the answer to that question is the only thing that's really worth anything at all.